Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we're going over the best day one decks for today's new card, Namora. Namora is a 5/6 that reads on reveal. Give +5 power to each of your cards alone at another location. Namora is being joined this week alongside other Series 5 cards such as Black Knight and Scar. In terms of Spotlight Week, I don't think this is a very good one, unfortunately. Scar doesn't see a whole ton of play. Black Knight, even in Hela, not seeing the most amount of play pretty much ever since Zabu got nerfed. And then in terms of Namora herself, I don't think this is like the worst card in the world or anything. This could potentially be a 5/16, which that's obviously a lot of stats. However, it is an on reveal, and we are currently experiencing a Leech meta, and you may have seen the video earlier about the leaked OTA notes. If you haven't, I'll have a link down below to it where you can check those out, but Leech is getting nerfed, so Namora might actually have hope come Thursday, right? I don't think so. The main reason for that is, well, yes, one of the big things that is kind of countering what this card is trying to do in Leech is getting nerfed. Some other things are also getting buffed, most notably Werewolf by Night, and I don't see Namora necessarily having the power output necessary to counter the decks that I think Werewolf is going to boost, namely things like Bounce or maybe some Loki shells. So I'm not super high on this card. As of right now, I've decided it's going to be the one card I'm going to be skipping this month to save a bit on resources. But did do some brewing here with it, and I do think it is an interesting build around condition, especially with some of the other more recent additions we've had to the game, being cards that can appreciate this extra power buff from Namora. So I don't think she's terrible, I don't think she's amazing, but I do think that this is a card you probably don't really need to pick up unless the effect really speaks to you. So yeah, in general, I think this is a pretty safe skip week. But if you are planning on picking her up, let's take a look at our day one decks that can best utilize this card. Starting out, we have a ramp deck, and I do think ramp is going to be one of the better places to make use of this effect. After all, being able to get it out on turn 4, potentially buffing up your Electro alongside maybe a Jeff or a Nebula, that's a lot of power to be getting out on turn 4, including Namora's body herself. Nocturne is a card you're going to see in quite a few lists here, mainly because I think just move cards are very flexible with Namora. I like move cards a lot in general, but the fact that we can have them on their own, buff them up, and then potentially move them into another lane that already has cards, or maybe another lane that already received some of that Namora buff, is pretty enticing. We are trying out Wave in this build. Obviously, we have a higher top end, so we want things to ramp out with, so we have Electro and Wave for that, as well as Jubilee. We are running Blink, really good with Jubilee, not bad with like Electro, Wave, that kind of stuff as well. Just in general, a pretty solid card here in this ramp style of deck. Vision, moving flexibility is really good. It's another good thing that can pop out of the Jubilee or the Blink. And then our top end, we are running Dr. Doom to go wide, since Namora kind of supports the going wide at the end of the game strategy, and Red Hulk and Magneto as just the two big threats of the format. I do also like the idea that Wave alongside Electro gives us more consistent ways of getting Namora out as early as turn 4, which I think will result in her being a bit more impactful than if you're playing her on turn 5. Next up, we have a Sandman deck. So I've been a pretty big fan of Sandman, especially with Bounce becoming more popular with the addition of Sage to the game. And I think Namora might be pretty decent in that. Again, you can see we have a lot of different move cards here, which can all take advantage of the Namora buff. Now, we don't have a direct way to ramp out Namora here early, aside from potentially hitting her off of Iron Lad, but that could be a very impactful hit. We can go quite wide with this deck between Miss Marvel and Dr. Doom, as well as the occasional Lad high roll. The other thing I like about this deck is our cards are generally fairly well statted, so getting that additional Namora buff can make them even more impactful. Red Guardian acting as our main piece of tech. White Widow, just decent stats. The Clog element is nice sometimes. Nebula and Nightcrawler as our main 1-drops, just very good and flexible 1-drops. You could also consider Wave in this deck in potentially one of the Series 5 card 3-drop slots if you don't have one of them, as I do think this deck could potentially make use of Wave as well in order to ramp out your Namora or your Doom earlier on. And then we have another similar kind of shell, except we are running a few different cards here. This one's opting to not go the Sandman route, and instead we have Captain Marvel, who's a really cool potential buff target for Namora. Lad again, because a lot of good high rolls here. Claw helps with our go wide strategy, so this one is very much more focused on the going wide angle. A lot of overlap here from the other one, but I think that's just because Namora decks really do benefit quite a lot from having cards that are the most efficient stats for their cost. Then we get into the more experimental stuff here. We have a Silver Surfer deck here. This one seems kind of strange, but I saw someone point out this idea and I thought it would be fun to try. Surfer has some really good targets, and aside from doing the brood stuff, it generally isn't playing out a whole ton of cards early on in the game. So we could use Namora here to buff up our main targets of like Dakin or Sebastian Shaw, which we can get even bigger over time, which is pretty cool. We could also play it post Sarah with another 3-drop, so we could use it to buff up stuff on our board in 2 lanes and then close with the Surfer buff. I don't know if this is going to be a great way to do it, but the idea sounded fun, so I wanted to try it out. And then we have another different take on the Sandman list, but we couldn't resist throwing in a Namora deck to pair with Namora. Is Namora a good card? Not really. Do I expect Namora to make him better? Not really. But you know, if you're in it for the lore and you want to play these 2 cards together, I do think something like this is probably not a bad way of doing it. Again, just pretty efficiently statted for the cost cards. Wave for ramp. We have some really good top end in this deck, and I still think that Captain Marvel is definitely one of the more interesting ways to get the best use out of Namora. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for our day 1 Namora decks. Let me know what you think about this card in the comments below. You can find the links to the decks in the description if you want to grab any of them. I kind of hope I'm wrong on this card. I would like this card to actually be fairly playable and, you know, worth running. But so far, in the context of the current meta, as well as potentially the things that are changing with the OTA, I'm just not really seeing it right now, unfortunately. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.